So I thought I would do a little bit of a Twilight video now that I have finished my first entry into one of the factions that I'm doing for Anyaral World of Twilight. What I had showed in the display in the beginning were the Devanu that I had painted up. Now, for many of the folks on my channel that are into the historical gaming, you may have already left by now, but what I would just say is that this game is really appealing to me in the sense of the weirdness factor and the originality factor of the models and the world that is Twilight. Now, I know it looks really, really different than most things people can place, even within the fantasy realm, and I think that's kind of what the appeal of it was to me at first. The game designer has been really doing this seems to be as a labor of love for many years. It's really many years in the making. It's been out for a while, but really in a slow progression. Over that time, the game designer has done everything from the background, the sculpting of the miniatures, the sketches and the artwork within the book, the design of the game. As I understand it, people can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is this is really the creation of one individual. And like I said, very much a labor of love. Now, one of the things that is really cool about it, and may be apparent in looking at the miniatures, is that it's a really unique looking fantasy game. It really doesn't seem to draw much upon the Tolkien-esque sort of fairy tale stories of fantasy creatures that we typically draw upon and see within fantasy games. There feels like there, when looking at it, are similarities, yet still really different to things like, for me at least, like Dark Crystal and even, I guess, Forbidden Planet, the cartoon. There were humans in that, but there are other things that there are things that I see that have like a little bit where it seems like, oh wow, like, yeah, that reminds me of this. But when you really look at the world and the miniature lines, it's fairly unique of itself. So, when first looking at this, I kind of was drawn to the imagery of these creatures, and it just really kind of sucked me in, and like, this looks so weird, but it's so cool, I can't look away. It's just so neat. But then I looked at some of the background and things, but what really sealed the deal for me to get into this was initially looking through the rules. The rules are available online for free. The rule book itself, I mean, there's a really nice rule book that I've shown in a prior video. It is kind of fairly complete compilation of various rules that have been written in the past and done in a really nice way with sketches and things. And the book is written as if there's a traveler going through the world of Anyaral, and it's his observations as well as the rules. So it's really, really neat. But when you look at the rules, it doesn't heavily rely on dice. Now, it also doesn't heavily rely on cards as far as activations or combat mechanics. There are cards in the game, and for those of you that looked at were paying attention at the beginning of the video, those models, the Grishak, which are these sort of bird reptilian sort of creatures, this is an example of a card you get in a deck, and so you don't have to flip in through the book and everything. You can just take. You're likely not going to have like 20 different types of models like in this game on the table. You're likely, from my observation, going to have between, depending on the size of the scenario, between 2 and 7, I don't know, types of models, just guessing, but that's what it seems like. And so you're not going to have like a ton of these on the table, but it seems like these are really cool because they tell you your abilities and give you your stats for the creature that you have. And then, speaking of abilities and things, I'm still learning the game, but you can get a quick reference card that they sell that basically will prevent you from having to look through the book at all the abilities while you play. So it really does try to streamline it quite a bit. Now, over here are these stones that I've painted. They're metal stones, and they're basically defense and offense stones. And models within the Twilight game are allowed a certain number of stones that they can then choose to kind of focus on defense or offense when you're in a combat. And so it allows you some strategy. You have you can basically use a cup and shake your stones and put them down, and you basically do this thing where you and your opponent count the number of stones, the number of successes, and the different types of stones, and you can manipulate the combat as to how it results. Now, there is more to it than that. There is one time where you roll a die sort of to save yourself, and then there's something where you use stamina to allow you to disregard stones. Certain models have the ability to affect the outcomes and use up stamina in order to either get hits or escape hits and have things go off, like abilities. Like I said, I'm still learning the rules, and it's been a while since I've read through them. This is a project that I've been planning to do for a while, and I need to review the rules again. But this bag that I have here is also used because there is a random activation where you have these, and I don't have them painted up or anything done with them, but you have these tokens that will determine who goes, and also there are special tokens that determine when, like, everyone fights at once. Like, there's just sort of a randomized activation that happens in the game. So, based on what I'm saying here so far, you may get the impression that there is more to this than just move and roll some dice and in a typical game. Like, there are some interesting activations, randomized activations, different kinds of mechanics with stones that you normally don't see in miniature games, and some really interesting looking models in a fairly unique world that is Anyaral World of Twilight. This is the Devanu faction. It's one of the original factions that came out. I have factions that I'm even more interested in that have come out more recently, but in order to experience the game as it originally came out, which sometimes that's a weird thing I like to do, is just really play the game not as everyone's playing it now, but as it just came out, just to get that impression and then see the cycle of how things have progressed for myself. And so I had, as I'd mentioned on the channel before, a really good deal where I was able to pick up a bunch of Devanu and a bunch of Fubarni, which are the kind of good guys. These are kind of bad guys, and the other ones are kind of good guys. Basically, these miniatures are actually kind of large. I'm just going to focus in here. But part of that is because these are the Devanu, which are, even though I have a lot of the models here, I don't probably need this many Grishak and this many, these are Copas and Sempas. This is the Sempa, the Copa, and they're basically the leaders of the Devanu, or the more master race within them. These are more pets in some ways, or like attack dogs in some ways. I have a Fubarni here who's a special character, an engineer, and unfortunately I don't have him painted yet. But that's an example of a Fubarni in their size. And you normally would have more of them than Devanu. If you can see how big this thing is, this would be like having a perhaps either an extremely large boar or something like that coming at you. I mean, quite tremendous in size. If you look at the head of this Devanu compared to that Fubarni, he can get the whole thing in one bite. But then even more so, if you look at, let's say, a Copa, and you look at the size here. Sorry, I'm adjusting here, but quite large in comparison. So, you normally, oftentimes it seems as if you will use more Fubarni than in model count, but I'm still learning the game, and there may be examples where that's incorrect, where there's Fubarni that or let's say more powerful or something like that. And so this engineer actually has a gun. For the initial release of the Fubarni, I think that was one of the rare instances where you had this, they're mainly using melee weapons, but in the game there is lots of range combat as well, and races that focus on that. I'm going to say off the top of my head there are about 5 or 6 races, so this is just the first 2. There are others that have very interesting looking creatures, which is another draw to the game for me. There is just lots of opportunity for inserting weird creatures and wildlife and things in this game that roam the world. I don't feel like, honestly, I thought about it. I think this game has enough depth to it in both the background and the rules that I don't really think I could do an intro video just encompassing the whole game. Not only from a perspective of my not having fully grasped it yet, but also just how long it's been kind of going on and how much the designers put into it. And so I just wanted to give a little taste today of Anyaral World of Twilight. I'd also like to thank, as I have mentioned in the past, both Derek Kinsman and Tristan Athelith over at Sergeant Tristan, the channel. Both of them have encouraged me through their focusing on the game in their own way to explore this game and give it another look. And I'm quite happy I have, and hopefully, as I have a winter of doing lots of French Indian War and Dark Ages, that I will counterbalance that with some other fictional stuff, primarily Anyaral and perhaps some Oldhammer painting as well. And so thanks for checking the video out, everybody. Hope your summer is, I hate to say it, ending well. We still have a little more time, but talk to you later.